Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Black and Abroad, an interview series highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, and a fellow Black expat, and we have another amazing episode in store for you today. So I would like to welcome our guest, Diara Parker. Say hi, Diara.
Hey, y'all. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're chiming in from Portugal to share with us your amazing journey. So, getting into it, I just want to give you all some background on Diara. She is a senior executive and equity consultant, passionate about elevating and centering marginalized voices and perspective into policy and systems change. As a COO and Chief Organizing Development Consultant for EQT By Design, a consulting firm based in the United States, Diara supports organizations and communities as they redesign, build, and implement strategic initiatives through an equity and justice-centered lens. Sounds like some amazing work, right? Prior to joining the EQT By Design team, Diara worked in the nonprofit and domestic violence fields, where she experienced significant burnout. This reality invited Diara to examine her own complicated and challenging relationship to wellness and rest. After years of reflection, therapy, and deep shadow work, Diara and her husband moved to Lisbon, Portugal, sight unseen, to embark on a new life journey centered around healing and exploration, and they haven't looked back. Diara has a master's degree in organizational leadership and development from the University of Colorado Boulder and a bachelor's degree in psychology and legal studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's passionate about creating more just and equity-centered communities and systems while also creating space for her own joy and liberation. Listen, this sounds like work after my own heart. I'm curious,
Yes.
how long have you been involved in the work that you're doing right now?
Sure. Good question. So I have been doing equity work for really almost a decade in a lot of different spaces. So as you mentioned, I started my work in the domestic violence field, and I started off volunteering when I was in college, and just really kind of exploring that space and figuring out what I like to do, where I could kind of leverage some of my strengths, and really learned that there are a lot of gaps when it came to embedding equity into that type of work, not just the nonprofit space, but how do we support the most marginalized survivor? How do we support the survivor with the most barriers? And typically those were BIPOC survivors. And so I was really encouraged and given the space to explore those intersections. And so equity work has been a part of me for really my entire career. And now I'm really doing the work with organizations, with communities across sectors, which is really a gift. The work is hard, it's challenging, but I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it, and it feels good to continue to learn. And the way that we talk about the work is it's all about co-learning. And so I know quite a bit about equity work, but I don't know everything. And so it's really about marrying my expertise around organizational development work and equity work with the expertise of our partners, the folks that we work with, and seeing what magic and synergy we can create together. So yeah, I love it.
Oh, it sounds like it, just to see your face light up as you share what it means to you, how long you've been engaged in it, and the type of change that come about from being so equity focused, which hopefully, as the world becomes more hip to the importance of equity-centered work, and it's not just this buzzword or a fad, hopefully they begin to realize the power in creating spaces for marginalized individuals, right?
Yep, exactly.
So before we get into the meat of everything, I'd like to start with asking guests, this tried and true question that always seems to be challenging. And it is, who would you say is Diara Parker? Who is Diara?
This actually is a very challenging question. I don't know why, right? Because it feels right every time. It feels so different than bio. And I appreciate this question. I was really kind of reflecting on it. So I'm originally from Chicago. I am a Bears fan. So for some of the listeners who are from the United States, I do love the Bears. We are not very good, but I'm loyal to my team. So I am a Bears fan, and Chicago has been a really big part of my upbringing as well as my family's upbringing. But I primarily grew up kind of split between Madison, Wisconsin and Chicago, two very, very different places. So I like to say that I'm the product of two worlds. So the south side of Chicago, as well as kind of the suburbs of Madison, Wisconsin, which very different demographically, very different in terms of the types of things happening in those communities. And so I am a product of those two worlds, and I'm grateful for that. My dad, so my mom's from the south side of Chicago, and my dad's from northern Wisconsin. So I also spent a lot of time in northern Wisconsin, going fishing with my dad, doing some hunting with my dad, which is wild for me to say now because that is not my life today, not my life today, and also not the vibe that my mom and I have. But it was really beautiful to have those experiences, and it's really informed the way that I look at the world. I think the ways in which I'm able to connect with people, which connects back to the work that I do. I'm a puppy mom. I love my puppy baby. My husband and I adopted him a couple of years ago. He is the center of our world, and we're just grateful that he's able to be here in Portugal. And I'm really someone who's learning. I'm learning. I would say I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm really trying to dig into what makes me happy, what fulfills me, what brings me joy, what makes me feel free. And I'm really learning to listen more to my body. And that's one of the reasons why I left the US, is because my body was starting to have a physical reaction to being in a place where I didn't feel safe anymore. And so I'm learning to listen to my body and to really lean into the things that feel good, and when things don't, to lean out, and that's okay, right? So right. So I'm learning, I'm exploring, I'm digging into hard things, doing a lot of shadow work, and just trying to live the life that the people before me, my grandparents, specifically my grandmother and my great grandmother dreamed up for me, and my mom too. So I'm just so grateful to be here, for real.
Listen, I hear it permeating through everything that you said. It just feels like you're learning the importance of self-liberation, and kind of like, the power in being able to untether ourselves from, like you said, the spaces where we don't feel safe, and seeking where is it in the world where, where we can be more of who we are, where we can tap into that, lean into that, feel a bit more liberated and walking in our skin, and just being who we're called to be. And I'm curious, like, as far as your childhood and what you've experienced, those quite opposite, experiences from the South Side, shout out, First Lady, Forever Floating and Forever POTUS.
All right.
And then juxtapose that to the suburbs of Wisconsin. I am really curious of what kind of shifts you feel like you had to make when you entered into these different spaces growing up.
Oh, that's a deep question. That's a deep question, a good question. It was interesting because when I was making that transition from Chicago and Madison and back and forth, I was really deeply into my formative years. So I was really young, and really trying to figure out who I was and where I fit in. And I honestly, I didn't really feel like I felt I fit in either space. And so it was difficult at times to understand that as a young person who's trying to, just figure the world out, figure herself out. And also, I think it helps to offer me some compassion for other people who are experiencing that even as adults, right? Like, where do I fit in within this organization? Where do I fit in within this community? And how can we create more space for all of those experiences and all of those identities that people hold, which are it's very complex, right? So there's no one answer. It's always evolving and changing. but I think it's given me a lot of really beautiful perspective, and I'm grateful for that experience because, like you said, they're so juxtaposed and so different, but
Yeah.
that's like my parents. They're very different humans, and they have each offered me such beautiful gifts that make me who I am today. And I'm proud of Diara. Like, I'm proud of who I am today. And I think I've done a lot of work too, really connecting to little Diara and really helping her heal. And so that's kind of newer for me, and that's something that I'm still exploring. But those experiences were they really informed today, which I'm grateful
Yeah.
for.
That's what I hear, that, the experiences that you were able to acquire growing up, having to kind of figure out, who am I in each of these spaces? How do I meld these to become the person that I want to be?
Mhm.
That it sounds as if they really influence the type of work that you've chosen to go into. Because we know that not everybody has the presence of mind or gives themselves the permission to do the deep work that it takes to heal from experiences that may be challenging, or give themselves permission to venture into these, new types of spaces in their life. And so I'm curious, I'm going to say I'm curious like 50 more times. Like, I wonder if you were like, what do you think your parents would say about the growth that DR has been
Mm.
able to make from that young girl to this blossoming woman?
Wow. Well, it's funny that you are asking this question because my mom was just visiting these past few weeks. She came to Lisbon. My dad wasn't able to make it, but she came and we spent 2 beautiful weeks together. And now she's trying to move to Lisbon. We have extended family members like, okay, let's go to
Girl,
Portugal.
it's
What's
gonna be a
next?
family affair.
Yes, yes. Family reunion in Lisbon for real. I think so when I first said, "Hey, mom and dad, Jake and I are moving to Lisbon," they were like, "Wait, what? Why?" Um, they were my mom especially was very not happy about it. She was not happy about it. She cried. She was like, "I think you're making the wrong decision," yada
Oh,
yada. And yeah, it was hard to hear that. And I think I was so grounded in my decision to make the transition that I was able to hold space for that, as well as hold
yeah,
space for I'm moving to Lisbon. And so
yeah,
how can we acknowledge that these two realities exist, and they might be, bumping up against one another a bit, but I'm leaving. And so
yeah,
what does that mean for us? Um, and I honestly, I think that them seeing how well I'm doing here and how much I'm thriving, I know they're proud. They've said it, I feel it, and they are genuinely happy for me. And I think too, in some ways, I feel like I am. Hmm, I think that seeing me in this space, I think that they're reflecting on what joy and kind of the next phase of their lives moving into retirement looks like for them. And I hear that in just some of the plans that both of them have for moving here. My dad's an Irish citizen, so they're able to come here and just live. And so I think there's a lot of pride, a lot of joy that they're feeling, a lot of just beautiful energy, like a beautiful energy exchange. And I feel like our relationship is deepening in a different way because I think everyone just has a little bit more space to lean in. And I think a lot of it for me has to do with just moving here and doing something different, doing something that feels better for me and for my little family here. It is wild what a move like this can do. It really is.
yeah.
I never would have imagined I would have been here um, 2 years ago. Never, ever, ever. Sight unseen too. We had never been to Europe. We had traveled
Really?
on the in North and South America, but we have never been to Europe, and we moved here, and it was the
Wow.
best decision that I've ever made. Best decision.
Wow. I am quite happy to hear that. Like, it takes, I always ask people this, that, do you believe that you're a risk taker for
Mm,
having ventured into this space?
I mean, sure. I think by definition, perhaps, yes, a risk taker. Honestly, I think that there was almost a kind of desperation that I had, that I was feeling to get out of that space, to get out of
Yeah.
the United States. And I had never felt that type of energy. Like it almost felt like I was crawling out of my skin. And I had never felt that before about being in a physical space. And that was a big driving factor. So sure, there's some risk taking there as well, but a lot of it was out of necessity, right? Like
Yeah.
it really was out of necessity for me. I needed to do something different because I was either going to quit my stressful job doing equity work and you know, I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule. I love the people that I work with. I love my job, and equity work is hard. It's really hard. And
Yes.
with everything that was happening specifically in 2020 in the United States, plus all the things that happen every day
Yes.
for me. So I was either going to quit my job and stay in the States, or I was going to leave the States and see what I could do with equity work over here, right? So I chose the latter, and it's worked out so far.
It sounds like it. You're beaming
Hmm.
just to talk about it. Like when you glow, you know, when you have like that, just the Cheshire smile from talking about the work that you do, then you know that's where your passion lies, right? I mean, because I wonder, having doing DEI work, you know, for as long as you have, you know that there's a juxtaposition between when you are passionate and it's a calling and when it's something
Hmm.
that's draining and feels like you're obligated, but you're not necessarily driven to do the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
It can feel
absolutely.
stifling.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've really been digging into, so I love the NAP ministry. I love all the things that she talks about rest and liberation and Black rest and liberation specifically. And
Yeah.
one of the things that emerged for me when I was really digging into some of the things that she was sharing is that I do not want to be a martyr for the movement, right? Like we have social justice advocates having brain aneurysms. We have people just not being able to live into their older age
Yeah.
because they've been burnt out by the work. And the people before me did not go through what they went through for me to be burnt out, for me to not be able to lean into all the joy and the pleasure and like the good stuff, right? Like I refuse to do it. So if I ever get to a point where doing that type of work in my professional world, because equity work is always going to be a part of who I am, what I do, period. But
Right.
if there comes a point where I need to separate it out in my professional life because it's misaligned with my wellness and my joy and my liberation, then there's no question about that. I will find something else to do. And so
Right.
I feel so grounded in that. I mean, that has been a huge transition for me, a huge transition, just being in spaces, working in the domestic violence field, the nonprofit field. I mean, it just churns people, right? It's
Yeah.
burnout is such a huge thing there. And so for me to be in this space where I'm like, I'm not about to burn myself out for that, is just so liberating. It's like,
It is. It is. And you know, just saying, just, you know, piggybacking off what you're saying, you know, working in that space where you're having to hold the mantle that has been brought before us and continue to do the work and going in all these different spaces. It's kind of like James Baldwin said, you know, being Black and relatively conscious, you're in a rage all the time, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
also knowing that part of this work has to be learning the importance of rest and rejuvenation
yes,
and working through like whatever feelings come up, because it's a feelings centered type of responsibility, right? You don't
yes,
go into it without having a deep abiding desire to affect change. And that
right.
can be very physically taxing, mentally taxing. So one of the things that like I've been in education for oh goodness, 15 years. And mental health since 2014. It's a lot of work. And what people don't realize is you have to prioritize your wellness in order
Yes.
to be able to show up and do the best work for the folks that you're serving.
Yep.
And I always wonder, moving forward in the spaces that you and myself occupy, what does that look like to make, your healing and your mental health and your wellness a collective part of these particular industries?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, oh, such a good question. So I think number one, in order for me to contribute to the collective, like just reiterating what you said, I have to be super grounded in prioritizing my own healing, wellness, et cetera, right? Because people see that. They see
Yeah.
that when I'm showing up in spaces in both a formal and informal way. And so I think that that's one way that I can really continue to contribute to that, is to continue to make myself a priority. The other thing that I do from a professional standpoint is we facilitate a Black leadership cohort course, leadership course that is centered around, how we navigate different things as Black folks within professional spaces, but it's also centered around how do we also make sure that we're taking care of ourselves? What does our own wellness look like? How do we
Yeah.
make sure that we're protecting our peace and really leaning into joy, Black joy, and offering the little bit that I know, just my experience to that space, and holding space for other people to share theirs, I think is one way that I contribute to the collective. And I love that. I love that. That's one of my favorite things to do from a professional standpoint, is being able to be a small part of seeing other Black folks thrive in
Yeah.
that Black leadership course, but also when I'm working within organizations and working with the Black and brown folks within those spaces, and helping to create a space where they can thrive and they feel good. They are my priority always, right? They
Yeah.
are always my priority. And so that feels good to lend the bit that I know to that space, and again to co-learn and co-create with them.
Yeah, thank you for offering that. I'm going to follow up on that, but I really want to know, you shared a few times before that there was a pressing need to leave the US in search of better places, healing places, I would imagine more psychological safety as well.
Yep.
So can you share with us like the genesis to your journey to Portugal?
Yeah. Oof. Well, um, so I've always wanted to live abroad. When I was younger, my mom traveled all over the world. I had a lot of opportunity to travel as well as a young person, not in Europe, but in South America, Central America, around the States. And so I've always had that travel
Yeah.
bug, if you will, and had the opportunity to do that. And so I've always wanted to live abroad, specifically in Europe, for a lot of different reasons. And 2020 came around. It was looking like, okay, this could be something that could happen. We had a couple of trips planned in 2020, and then the pandemic hit,
Right.
which shifted everything, right? And so, um, I mean, the pandemic hit us all in significant ways. And I think for me, everything just felt so heavy, and doing equity work and working with my clients who were either doing direct service or trying to support their teams through the pandemic. I mean, there was just this veil of grief and
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
and still then in the US having to push through the grind. Like there was still this energy of, you got to go go go, we got to meet
Yeah.
these grant requirements, or we got these investors who are expecting X, Y, and Z. And it's like, y'all, we can't look at work in the same way. Like the world has changed, and if we are
Yeah.
also not evolving, we're doing something. We need to do something different. And
Right.
so I was noticing that wasn't happening within the spaces that I was in. And for me, like, the work is about policy and systems change, and our systems aren't set up for that. specifically in the US and a lot of other places, but in the US where I was, it's not set up for rest and to roll with the punches, if you will, and to shift things as new things emerge, right? And so, as I said earlier, my body was starting to have a physical reaction to being there. I was a lot more anxious. I was going through depressive episodes. I wasn't as active or motivated as I normally am, and so I knew that something was wrong.
Yes.
And I was like, again, just like feeling like I was crawling out of my skin. I needed to do something different. I
Yeah.
needed to do something different and something significant, right? And so, um, I started, following some people who had moved abroad and just starting to kind of get my toes a little wet, get my feet wet to see what was out there. And
Yeah.
specifically, I started following Black women who had moved, mostly Black single women who had moved, and just to really kind of learn from their experiences. How did they feel being a single human in that space? What were some of the challenges that they experienced? What were some of the triumphs, the joys? And that I told my husband, I was like, so I'm moving out of the country. And we've been together for a decade, right? So we have this really beautiful dynamic. I was like, so I'm moving out of the country and I love you so much and I want you and Apollo to come with me too. Apollo is our dog. I said, but nothing is keeping me from getting out of here because I need to listen to
Listen.
my body, right?
Okay. Y'all coming or not?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And he was like, bet, I got you. And he was like, let's go. So so that was really kind of the kickoff to looking at a lot of different countries
Yeah.
in Europe. So we were looking at some cities in France and Germany and Spain and Portugal. And Portugal was kind of low on the radar, at that time. And now it's booming, right? All these articles coming out about expats moving to Portugal, yada yada.
Yeah.
But there was something that kept pulling us into that direction of Lisbon. And I started talking to people who were here and actually hearing from them directly to me about their experiences. And we were like, well, if we don't like it, we can move someplace else or we can come back to the States. Like, it is not that we
It's not
have
permanent.
options. It's not
Right.
permanent. And here we are. And like I said, it's literally been the best decision of my entire life. And I
Wow.
do not say that lightly. It's been incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you all been there?
We have been here for our 1 year anniversary is coming up next week, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, happy early anniversary.
Thank
So
you.
I'm wondering, like, as far as the language barrier, because I'm in Beijing and God knows there's a language barrier.
Yes.
Are you all trying to acquire Portuguese? Because I speak Spanish, but Portuguese is
Okay.
a whole nother another beast.
It is. It is. It is. Great question. So yes, we are learning Portuguese, and that's something that's important to us. Is wherever we are in the world, we want to make an effort to learn the
Right.
primary language there. And so, yes, we are learning Portuguese, and the thing here, though, too, that you have to be careful of, specifically in Lisbon or in Porto, the Algarve, some of the other bigger areas, is that a lot of people also speak English. There are also a lot of expats here. So
Okay.
it's really easy to kind of move away from practicing your Portuguese if that's something that you
Yeah.
want to do. Because even with some of my Portuguese friends, I'll try to talk to them in Portuguese and they'll talk to me in English, right? So it is definitely a practice and you have to be really intentional about it. But one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people are super, super open and really excited about hearing you practice their language,
Yeah.
and they're very patient.
Yeah.
At least the folks that I've run into, very open and very patient. And so I think it's a really good place to learn a new language, particularly a challenging one. I also know a little bit of Spanish, and Portuguese is not an easy language, specifically to speak, because, and you'll have Portuguese people who will say this, they speak really fast and also drop letters. And so
Yeah.
it might look like, if you know Spanish, you can read it and say, oh, okay, I understand what that means. But when you hear it, it sounds a little bit different. And so
Yeah.
there's a learning curve for sure, but it's been a cool journey.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's kind of, I've noticed that, here trying to speak Mandarin, the very limited but growing, Mandarin that I can speak, and trying to, communicating with people, it almost demonstrates, not even almost, it demonstrates just a level of respect for
Mm,
the culture that I'm visiting
yes.
for a while, and just demonstrating that I want to be as immersed in this culture as I possibly can, communicate with you in your own terms, not feel any type of, I would say, superiority.
Yep.
But knowing that I'm starting on the ground floor, I'm trying to, really, live the life.
Yes.
And I've noticed, like, with locals here, that when I get it wrong sometimes, most of the time, but they're always willing to be like, oh, okay.
We got you.
Right, but then they go to Google Translate when I just cannot. It is my best friend. So
Yes.
I, been there almost a year, and I can see, like, the joy on your face as you talk about it. I'm wondering, how do you believe going with the decision to move abroad, being in Portugal with your husband and your fur baby, how do you believe you've grown through this experience?
Mm, mm. Oh man, that's a question that like hits so deep because um I've grown so much. I've grown so much. I've grown so much. I think that being in Lisbon has just given me so much space to just explore, to
Mhm.
really deepen my relationship with myself, reconnect with my body, reconnect with little Diara, past traumas. Um, I would say that I would say that I've always been a very bright, energetic human. And I think that I have more space to really let that shine. And I have more space for reflection. Um, like I said, I've been doing a lot of deep shadow work, a lot of therapy, and I've been reading more. I've been reading a lot more. I've really been tapping into this creative side of me that I've always had. I used to do a lot of painting and sculpting as a younger person.
Wow.
And over the years, I kind of lost that. I mean, it
Right.
was schooling and work and all of that. And it just wasn't a priority anymore. And I also didn't feel as creative.
Yeah.
And so I'm really tapping into that a lot more and uh, able to feed and kind of nurture that part of me, which feels really good. Um, my mental health has changed tremendously, tremendously. My anxiety has, it's almost non-existent at this point. I used to take CBD
Okay.
every day, and that kind of helped a lot. And then I realized that I couldn't bring the CBD into the country. I was like, dang, I don't know if I can swear on here. I was like, dang, what am I supposed to do?
Woo,
And I
like,
was like,
oh, I
well,
gotta find something else.
well, but I haven't needed it. I haven't needed it. I
Oh,
haven't needed it. And it was almost like an immediate shift. I mean, after I got
wow.
through the jet lag, it was an immediate shift. And I think the sun helps. I'm sitting out at my co-working space right now outside, and it's sunny all the time. We have a
Mm,
beautiful space that we've created that's home. And Apollo, our puppy, is thriving. My husband is thriving. He's got a new job working for an international company that cares about the fact and centers the fact that he's a human
wow.
first versus a worker or worker bee
Right.
first, someone who's an employee first. And that's been a beautiful gift. And I think, too, the last thing that I'll say is I'm learning to be more present. I'm learning to be more present with myself, but also with the people that I'm around. I'm learning to really focus on now. I'm learning to like lean into all the feelings that are happening in the moment, the good,
Yes.
the bad, the ugly. I'm learning to feel all my feelings. So if I feel like crying, like let the tears
Do
flow.
it.
If I feel
Do
like
it.
running around and being silly, like do that. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had the space to do that where I was. And like that is something that I do like. It is wild to me that I lived so long not feeling that consistently. And it
Yeah.
feels almost unreal sometimes
Yeah.
that this is my life. This is just
Yeah.
my life. This is my daily life. And I hope and put a lot of energy into other people being able to live this life as well. Whatever it looks like for them. It might not be in Portugal and not right, but like whatever that looks like, it might be in the States, whatever that is for you. Like I really hope and dream that people find it, because if we had more people in the world who had that, different game, totally different
Yeah.
game.
Just the space, just a space to be, right? And
Yep.
in as healthy a fashion as possible. But
Yep.
we know that there are back home, there are so many barriers to being able to access,
Yeah.
things that are going to help you live a more holistically well life. There are so many, there's stigma everywhere that gets in the way of us being able to know that mental health is key. And working through whatever challenges that we might encounter. But in addition to all that, like the resources are there. It's just how do we collaborate to make that more accessible to those who are in the most need?
Yep.
And there's so much gatekeeping. So I think like one of the
Yeah.
major motivations behind doing this, as an expat living in China for the last 4 years, mental health is not my job, it's my calling for sure, is really trying to, show the world that first off, we occupy spaces everywhere. We belong in spaces everywhere. And our healing can look so much different than the daily lives that we've been told that we have to live. But a lot of times it's stepping out on faith, or whatever it is that people believe in, taking risks, calculated risks in most cases, and just being able to search for the thing that's going to reignite like your fire, your passion, the things that make you happy. But there was a conversation in one of the previous episodes that I can't negate. It's that, well, when you are trying to survive, those things seem like luxuries.
Yes.
It doesn't seem attainable when first off, I need to make sure that I'm housed, I'm fed, I'm safe.
Yep.
So I don't know that it's a multi-pronged answer that I definitely don't have all of the information to solve this particular problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, even if it's just with people being able to live vicariously through the examples that we said or the information that we share, maybe that's a start,
Yeah.
So
I think it is.
I think so too. And I believe I'm surrounded by lots of great Black women. It's always Black women.
Yes.
Not hating on anybody else.
It is what it is.
I mean, just like the progenitor of so much, healing and freedom and having everybody else know y'all can do it too. I think we're just learning, we're reclaiming Auntie Maxine, we're reclaiming our time, reclaiming our power, reclaiming what healing center practices look like. And it feels good. It's scary sometimes, but it feels good. So
it feels really good.
Right. I want to shift to, I know that you've spoken a lot about mental health, which I am so excited about. But I want you to think back to growing up, and what can you recall about messages passed down through family, friends, culture, about mental health, mental illness? Can you recall anything?
Oh yes, I can recall. Yeah, so on my mom's side of the family, the Black side of my family, mental health is just not a thing that we talk about, which I know is a very common thing, right, in the Black community.
Everybody has said that. Everybody that I've
Yes.
interviewed, everyone has said it.
Yes. It was looked at as something like, oh, therapy. So what's wrong with you? Why do you need therapy, right? As if something has to be catastrophically wrong to
Right.
go. And even if it is, it's like, why we have to ask that question like that, right? Like, we're adding to the stigma.
Right. Don't
um,
shame me.
right. Um, and it was also something, and this is something that my mom and I have really dug into since I've been here. She actually just started therapy for the first time. A
Oh,
62-year-old
mommy.
Black woman from the South Side of Chicago started therapy for the
Listen,
first time. Mm,
listen.
mm,
Thank you, mom. I
yes.
haven't even met you yet, but thank you, mom.
Yes, yes. But something that her and I were talking about is that it was just so taboo because she was like, she doesn't remember anybody. Like, no one talked about therapy in a positive way. It was
Right,
always something that, like, that's not something that we do. Like, we figure it
right.
out, like, we pray, we like whatever we need to do, we look to God, like all these other things. And it's like, yes, that is a part of it, sure.
Yeah,
And it's not the
yeah,
same. It's not
yeah.
the same. And how do we create space for all of those things? And how do we also eliminate the stigma? Even like, how do we examine ourselves, like, and the things and that we say and the things that we do to contribute to the reasons why people don't feel safe seeking help and support, right?
Right.
And it was not something that was talked about in my family. It was not something that was viewed favorably. And honestly, the work that I did in the domestic violence field, the people that I was surrounded by, the things that I learned about trauma-informed care and seeking support and not um, pushing shame on that, that is what helped me create space to actually seek it myself. And um, it's been life changing. It's been life changing. There have been things that have come up for me from my childhood in terms of past traumas that I cannot imagine what my life would be like if I hadn't had the space to really dig into that, because those
Yeah,
things manifest physically, they manifest mentally, they manifest, in terms of like spiritually, they manifest in your relationships. And I I really want to be, again, a small part of the conversation around mental health, and specifically mental health for Black and Brown folks. I think is so important, so
yes.
so important.
That is amazing. I'm so, glad. It is like I almost whenever I ask the question, it's kind of like I don't want to get ahead of myself thinking that I already know what the answer is going to be, right?
Yep.
But it's so uncanny. Like of all the Black people that I've spoken to from everywhere in the world, all of our answers have been the same. No, we
Yes.
didn't talk about that. Yeah, mental health, that wasn't a thing. You
Yep.
know, nobody had the time to sit and meditate over and think about and am I
Yes.
mentally ill? Am I this? Am I that? Because again, we're trying to survive another day, right? We're
Yep.
trying to provide, we're trying to do all these things. And then when I think specifically, like my mother's a counselor, she's a retired
Okay.
counselor. And so my mother is an amazing counselor, won lots of awards. I still have to try to get her to be like, Mom, and Mama, don't be mad at me for sharing this, okay? I'm not going too deep. But just with the narrative of all of the Black women that I know and love, that cloak that we wear,
Yep.
we have to be all things, or we've been told that we have to be all things to all people. We have to take care of everybody else. Our needs are on the back burner. Um, being compassionate, trusting in the Lord, praying it away. We butt heads a lot of time because I'm just like, oh, most of these things can be true. But again, how do you redefine wellness in your life for yourself at this point?
Yep.
What does it look
Yep.
like to give yourself the best so that you can give others the
Yes.
best and not the rest, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is, I sometimes feel like women, no matter the nationality, but definitely Black women and other women of color have a more difficult, what I've noticed, have a more difficult time of like sitting down, resting, letting go of all of these roles that we've had to
Yep.
play in order to prioritize ourselves. Because we don't
Yep.
want to be seen as selfish or haughty or you think you too much. So again, how do we as a culture shift the narrative to help us to understand that no, these things aren't optional.
Yes.
They are necessary.
Right.
And I can talk all day about Black women and, Black men for sure, Black men in general. It's a whole nother conversation to have. What does communal healing look like, and how are we collaborating to forward that mission? It's such an enigma, one that I want to crack the code, but it's interesting. I was having a conversation, like, I did Ty's episode a little while ago, and she was making me jealous, talking about the Black community of women in Portugal. Oh my God, I can't wait to come. Tell me, how do you believe, like, the community that you've been able to create in Portugal has helped to fortify, like, the practices that you're engaging in? I need to write these questions down because I be asking extra questions.
Look, this is a really good question. I mean, this community has been life-changing. I think it helps that we're all on very different journeys, all very different people, and we're all seeking something more, seeking something better than what we had, mainly in the US. And so we're all just like trying to co-create and co-learn and figure out, like, what does that actually look like for us here?
Right.
What are some of the things, like opening up conversations about what are some of the things that we're struggling with, that we have struggled with, what feels different being here, and just creating space to talk about it and to reflect on it. And that was one of the things that was a big contributing factor to me moving here, is seeing other Black women who had done it. Like, I was like, wow, there are other people who look like me who are doing this, like with kids, with partners, solo. I mean, that was unfathomable for me for so long, And so I think we give each other permission to, like you said, just be, to just be, and to lean into all the joy, the freedom, the pleasure, the fun, the creativity. I would not have been able to do this without this community.
Yeah.
No way. Not with the same confidence and I think, a little bit of grace that I have been able to do it with. I mean, I'm just like so happy thinking about it.
It's obvious. I'm happy for you. Like every last one of y'all, you, Ty, Shar, whenever the concept of the community comes up over in Portugal, it is just this radiation of happiness and safety and friendship. I'm just like,
come on.
My goodness, I got 2 more years in China. I love where I am. Like you said, you never thought that Portugal would be it, right? China was never on my radar. I actually, like I said before, I thought about Portugal. I knew I was just moving to Barcelona. And how I came out here was a teacher that used to work on my team when I was in admin. Her and her husband moved abroad. And it has, since I have been little, I have always been, I want to live abroad. I want to go live somewhere else in the world. And, when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, what? It's so fun. Like, I was getting ready to make a transition from this very toxic and just emotionally damaging job. And I was like, okay, I'm moving to Dallas. I need to leave. And my friend reached out to me. This was the second time they'd reached out to me. Are you finished with your license? Can you come abroad already? And I was like, I actually just finished, right? I've been done for like a year and I'm ready to move on from this place. And I need something different in my life because what I was wanting, it just wasn't clicking. And I knew that making a move, I needed to do it. And I was no longer afraid, right? And the opportunity came up and it just went so smoothly. It was actually kind of scary. I got the call about the job on my mother's birthday.
Wow.
And I was just like, it's, oh my God, I'm getting chills. I was
Mm.
doing, so I have this social emotional learning group that I created for the students at risk in the school that I was at previously, called Becoming Better Students. And I was working with a group of boys, ooh, child, and they are almost out of high school now.
Wow.
And I was standing up, in front of them. We had just started covering something. I can't even remember, something about, feeling their feelings, probably working through some relaxation strategies, self-regulation strategies for Black boys, Hispanic boys that stay in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the call and I was like, okay, y'all, work in your groups. And I got the call, girl, I just started crying. And my boys, Miss Tyson, what's going on? Did you break up? Do we need to go see somebody? I'm like, no, it's good, it's good. It's good. I could not articulate to them in that moment that
Yes.
I'm moving to another country, because they were like, yo, what's going on? And when I finally told them, they were just like, are you serious? What? You moving where? You mean we're not gonna see you again? Like, what? It was just, and that's when I knew this is for me, because I didn't go looking for it. It came into my consciousness. It all worked out. So when things get difficult over here, because China is not the easiest place to live, and it's definitely not the easiest place to live for a single Black woman, that wants to be partnered. There's just a shift in focus that has to occur, right? But when I remember that, no, think about the trajectory. And I'm moving, this is my second place that I've worked here. I haven't looked for a job, they've come to me. And that's how I know, okay, you're meant to be here for a little bit longer, but how do you leverage the time that you have to help you grow? So then when you do move back or move somewhere else, that you're in a better position mentally, financially, interpersonally, spiritually. I'm wondering, have you found that you've grown in your self-appreciation as you're living abroad?
Yes, 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 yes. I would say a bit, I would use the word newfound. I have this newfound, like you said, appreciation, respect, and like deep love for my body, and for me, like all the things that make me and unique. And that is new, to feel so whole sitting in that space. That is very new. Like I've said this so many times, that Portugal, it's likely not my forever place. I don't think any place is a forever place for me, but it is so special to me because it has given me space to heal. Like, I am on a healing journey, and I am so grateful to have this space, because some people go through their whole lives not ever finding this space. I recognize that it's a gift, it's a privilege, and I don't take that shit for granted, And yeah, I look at myself differently, not just when I'm physically looking in the mirror, but just when I think about me, which for so long felt like selfish to me or arrogant. I was like, is this like a little too much? But it's like, no, like lean into your greatness, lean into like all the things. Because that also, and there's like a quote about this, that also can give other people permission to shine too, because we all have that. And it's just not, we're just not always able to tap into it. And I have been able to tap into it. And the wild thing is that I know that there is so much more to go for me. I know that I have like a lot more space to expand, and to know that, knowing how good I feel right now is like,
oh my God,
wild.
that it can be amplified.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
Man. And it's also, okay. It's like in like our healing seeking, permission giving, we are also like giving other women, other people, the the playbook to their own liberation, right? We are showing inadvertently that if I can do it, you can too. And I think that through the work that I've had to do, you know, to become a licensed professional, a mental health clinician, it's really understanding the role that childhood has played in my development. And as you said, you know, working through some traumas. And what I want people to really understand is that, well, one, we're still living through a collective trauma. So that has vastly shifted, again, the way that we live in the world, relate to people. And so it's how are we going to be able to live in this new normal and still seek the healing that is available to us? And what does it look like for our community as a whole to begin to re-engage with ourselves and provide the healing spaces and the safety so that we can begin to just live better, live healthier lives, even if that's still in the US, if that is abroad temporarily or whatnot, just how do we begin to craft a new existence, right? Built off the strong foundation that we have. I always wonder about that. So we're drawing close. I have a few more questions. When you think about the advancement of mental health in Black communities, BIPOC communities, what would you envision to be like the next step, or what do you think would be a good, just what do you think? What do you think about the advancement of mental health in our culture?
Like what I would hope that it would look like? Is that the question?
What would you hope for?
I would hope that anyone who wanted support, who needed support, was able to get that support, and it was readily accessible, right? It was like you click a button, you send an email, right? And it's accessible for you in any medium that works for you, whether that be virtually. I know some types of therapy aren't super great virtually, but a lot are, right? So virtually or in person, that it's accessible from a financial standpoint. I think that, right, is the obvious one is, let's make sure that it's accessible to people. But I think the behind that, like, how do we make it accessible, is going back to what you were saying, which is related to, I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so if we're trying to move towards self-actualization, or all the things that are at the top, we have to have our basic needs met. And for so many people, their basic needs are not met. And so for me, we need to get down to the root of the issue and really look at policy and systems change that helps to ensure that people's basic needs are met. Because why would I be thinking about therapy if I got babies to feed, or I have a family to feed, or I have, a job to go to, or I'm stressed about X, Y, Z? Why am I thinking about it? I don't have space. And I don't think we always give grace to folks when it comes to that, right? We don't always realize that hierarchy of needs, it's not as linear as the graphic makes it, but it is real. It is real in practice. And so how can we collectively support our community to have their basic needs met, so that when they are looking at moving abroad, or they're looking at getting some mental health support, that they have the space to do that, in addition to it being accessible? That should be a given. The policy and system change is a little more challenging, but I think we all have a role to play in that, and I think it's possible. Like, I believe in it so deeply, so deeply.
Yeah, same here. I think there's just been an awakening. Right? There's just certain things that can't be ignored anymore. And we have a better understanding of the formula. It's how do we fund it? Who's working together, what communities are coming together to get it done, without everybody trying to shine. It's, how do we actively engage together to get the mission done?
Right.
So I know that I'm playing my little part, of the journey, where as best as I think I can in this moment, but knowing that hopefully it's able to expand. And, when I have guests like yourself that come and share, I want y'all to know that you are playing a role as well, right? Because again, we're giving people permission to know that this is available to you too. And the journey is worth it. There's so much more on the other side of doing that good and hard work. The liberation, the ease that comes after the hard work. But the hard work is a continual process, but it gets easier over time, right? It's not going to be difficult forever. So I think it's just learning how to evolve through this process and knowing who to partner with to help that evolution go as fast as possible and as quality as possible as well.
Yes. That's real.
Right. I want to ask you, like, how do you believe that you're tapping into your gifts, your strengths to create opportunities for others, for your community?
I think that naturally through my professional work as an equity consultant and helping to build out our business, that I'm doing that there, just in terms of facilitation, creating space for people to process, creating space for people to examine structures, systems internally and within a community space as well. We need to have those conversations, creating space for people to be vulnerable and talk about our feelings. Like, you have some feelings coming up, like, let's talk about that. And let's also make sure that you have the tools to share that with other people, right? It's not just like, here's an open forum, let's speak. How do we make sure that we have the tools to facilitate that? And so I think facilitating spaces is something that's a strength of mine, and I think is something that I can offer back to the community that's given me so much. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I think I guess the other piece that I'll say is being a part of these types of conversations is something that's new to me. I'm a bit of a private person, Sometimes I can be very open, particularly with people that I feel really comfortable with. That, I would say the people in my life would say I'm an open book, and sharing my life in this type of public forum is new to me, like my personal life. And so this is something that is kind of a step outside of my comfort zone that, as you said, is contributing to making this possible for other people to do that. That was what helped me, is seeing other people who looked like me doing this, And so I am always happy to add to the conversation, be a part of the conversation, because I'm learning a lot from this conversation as well, and others that I've had. So, it's an exchange, a really beautiful exchange that I'm grateful to be a part of.
I'm so grateful that you have chosen to participate, and I really hope that it has felt safe and fun and engaging, like just all the wisdom that you've been able to share, right? All the things. It just makes me feel grateful, one, that you took out time. I mean, we're almost finished. We're not quite finished. These conversations can go on for so long, when you just really get down to the nitty-gritty and the heart of things, and stuff just comes up and you just want to talk about it. And, I'll probably have to facilitate some sort of panel discussion so that we can dive deeper, right? But I'm so grateful for the wisdom and the nuggets that you've given us and the audience. So we're going to shift here to what we call the rapid question round. Okay. And then after that, if you have any last words that you like to share, tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to continue to follow your journey, you definitely have the floor to do that. So we'll start with the first wraparound question. And what is one word that you would use to describe yourself?
Ooh, that was a hard one. I feel like that's the first
Everybody
question.
says it.
Dang. I would say energetic.
Yes, I feel
energetic.
That.
Yes.
I feel that. So what's your favorite country to visit?
Oh, honestly, it might be Portugal, and I might be a little biased because I live here right now, and I'll be doing a lot more exploring this year. I'm going to
Yeah.
Copenhagen this weekend actually, but I would say yeah, Portugal, and it's got such a special place for me. So
Oh my
catch me in a
God.
year, and we'll see if I have a different answer. I might have a different answer.
Listen, when the world opens back up and China actually lets us leave and come back, I am
Let's
on a
go.
plane. I'm on, like, y'all gonna be like, I'm staying at somebody's house, okay? Listen, we
Right.
about to be family. I'm just letting y'all know.
Yes.
So when you think
Yes, yes.
about self-care, right? What would you
Mm.
say is your go-to self-care strategy?
The strategy is to make sure that I create intentional space for it, period. Like
Yeah.
uninterrupted space. I have my morning yoga or weightlifting time. I'm not on my phone. So one of the things I do to support that is when I wake up in the morning, I am not on my phone. I need to do my workout, shower, get dressed, and then I can get on my phone. And so I have to set up very intentional space and boundaries to do that. So making sure that I have that time is so precious.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's if we have busy days, it might be the only space and time that we have that's just to ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I protect that space. That is my strategy. Protect that damn space at all
Y'all hear
costs.
that?
At all
Listen.
costs.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you owe it to yourself to do that. We have to, it's that
Yes.
boundary of no, this is what I need to be good today. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
Right.
that.
Right.
Like, so when you think about I'm into quotes. I've created journals and books and stuff about the power of affirmation and quotes and things of that nature. So when you think about an affirmative quote, scripture, inspiration, affirmation, what would be your go-to?
Yeah. So I would say mine is a quotation from Adrienne Marie Brown. I love Adrienne. So many books that she's written, and so many things that I've learned from her. And the quotation that really kind of resonates with me is she said, "We cannot realize the world that we want without our own healing and transformation." We cannot
Mm,
realize the world that we want without our own healing and transformation. And I feel like, I mean, there's so many nuggets that we can pull from that.
yes.
I think the biggest thing is we always have to start with ourselves, whether that's, in terms of um, examining the ways that we are complicit in some of the shit that we are trying to disrupt in terms of looking at our own healing, looking at our own relationship to wellness and rest, right? Like if we are in those spaces, especially as practitioners or consultants, or you know, we are in a teaching role, we also have to walk the walk as well. And so
Have to.
um, it's so easy to like point the finger at systems or at other people, but it starts with me. It starts with me, and so I am trying to contribute to a better space, a better world, a better community, and I am a part of that is working on my own stuff. So
Listen. Oh
that's
my
important to
goodness.
me.
I appreciate that. So lastly, what is it that you love most about your culture?
Mm, mm.
All the things.
Ah, so many things.
Your top three, your top three.
Ah, wow. Okay. Damn, I love how creative we are. Like we will just create from like nothing. It's like how?
Nothing.
How did we do
Yes.
that? Where did that come from? Ooh, we are creative. We are mm, we are so community centered. Like I used when I was younger, we would be like in the grocery store or something, and I would be with my mom, who's Black, and we would be like walking through the grocery store and she would see a Black woman, Black person, and you know, they would say hi and do these nice things. Like, oh, do you know them? And she's like, no, this is just what we do.
That's
Well, I
that's
don't
my
know that
mother
this is just what
all
we
day
do.
long. Hey, girl.
Right. Right. And I love that about us. I
Yeah.
love that about us, right? Like we walk into a room and we speak to people. Like that is
Yes.
so important. And
Yes.
finally, oh, it's so hard to keep it to 3, but damn, I love our joy. I love our joy. I love our happiness. I love our greatness. I love our
Yes.
energy, our smiles, I love everything about us, every
Yeah.
damn thing.
Yeah.
And we have been through so much and continue to struggle through so much. And we still, and all those things still are. Like,
Yes. Like what? You know what? That makes me think about, there's a Twitter thread that I was reading. Well, actually, it pops up every now and again where like the African American urge to, and it's just like people from literally everywhere in the world, we all have the same answers. Like we
yeah.
all have the same type of experiences. And I just be like, how?
Yes.
How? Like, how? I just, man, like we don't know each other from Adam, but
Yep.
the way we season our food or the things that we say
Yes.
or the head nod or
Mhm.
just how it's just this thing that we have.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Listen,
Yes. Yes.
Diara,
Yes.
I
Yes.
am, when I say 100% grateful for, I mean, I've said this how many times today and I'm gonna keep saying it. You have like unlocked something for me. First off, I'm jealous because I want to be there with y'all and I will be. And I am just so like grateful for the joy, you know, grateful
Thank you.
for like you wear healing well. And I'm so glad that you shared that with me and with everybody that's watching today. So I hope that I can continue to connect with you and everybody there. Y'all have blessed me like in immeasurable ways I can't even describe, just to know there's, like my mom always says, there's greater later, right? It's good today, but there's greater later. And so, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Listen. And for everyone that is watching, I want to say thank you for tuning into another amazing episode of Black and Abroad. I encourage you to keep taking risks, keep impacting your communities, and above all, make sure you continue to prioritize your mental health. Please share this in your circles of influence. Go to the page, view the episodes, like and subscribe so that we can continue to share this awesome message of healing in our spaces, in our communities, and knowing that we belong everywhere. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Diara, for being here. And with that, I'm gonna say peace, people.